Hey, what's going on, Trojan family? Welcome to the USC LAFB show here on the LAFB network. We are Los Angeles Sports, and this is your destination for USC Trojans football news. Thank you, as always, for making us a part of your day. Great weekend. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend, but it was a great weekend in Trojan land. The point of this video, actually, I'm not going to talk as much about the Mark Bowman commitment, which obviously I hope everyone knows by now, 5-star tight end out of Mater Dei. I'm going to talk mostly about some intel regarding the quarterback position, specifically in 2027, but it obviously affects a specific quarterback in the 2026 class, a la Ryder Lions. So I want to talk about that a little bit, but really quick. Got to at least mention the Mark Bowman commitment. Huge commitment for USC. I talked about it on one of my last videos, that it was trending the right way. When I put the video out, it was like an hour before the commitment was announced. We had some intel that it was coming. So, there's some info there if any of you are interested that haven't seen it, but kind of break down Mark Bowman. I comp him to like a Brock Bowers. Like, I think he has that much talent and that much ability. Brock Bowers being the first-round pick out of Georgia, who was an all-pro last year with the Raiders as a rookie in the NFL. I think Mark Bowman has that type of talent, the 6'4", 230 build, can just be an absolute game changer. The interesting thing will be seeing, how Lincoln Riley kind of uses the tight end position this year. I don't think there's any fear or risk of, losing Mark Bowman's commitment if, like, Lake McCree doesn't go off this year, or Walker Lyons or Joey Olsen or Walter Matthews goes off this year. I don't think they're, he knows what he's worth, and they've obviously told him how they want to utilize him, and things can change year to year. But it will be interesting to see how much more they'll use the tight end position, because those guys I mentioned are all very talented. I mean, Walker Lyons, Joey Olsen, Walter Matthews, all very talented young tight ends. Obviously, Lake McCree back as kind of the veteran. And so how much more, 11 personnel, 12 personnel were Lincoln Riley used? Because last year they ran a lot of heavy 10 personnel with no tight ends, or when they used a tight end, part of that was Lake McCree got hurt, and those are all really young guys that they're just getting infiltrated into the system. So that's part of that. But even when they use a tight end during Lake McCree's absence, and even with him there, it was almost more of kind of like an H or a wing back, used more as like a chipper to kind of, chip the edge rusher. They used it a lot against Penn State, but they didn't really utilize it in the passing game outside of those first couple weeks when Miller Moss and Lake McCree kind of had their connection, but then McCree went down. So it'll be fun to watch kind of how the offense utilizes these tight ends currently, and then that can hopefully be a setup for what they can potentially do with Mark Bowman. And for those that say, like, oh, Lincoln Riley doesn't use a tight end, like, he hasn't used it a ton at USC, so that's maybe a fair assessment. But don't forget, like, Mark Andrews was one of the best tight ends in the country when he played for Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma, and obviously we've seen how great Mark Andrews has been in the NFL. So Lincoln Riley can certainly utilize the tight end position. I think they'll do so more this year. And getting Mark Bowman is just going to push them even further in utilizing his skill set as just another weapon in this offense, which is really exciting. The one thing I wanted to not necessarily address, but kind of speak on, a lot of numbers floating around, right, about what USC is kind of paying in NIL in order to gain the commitment of Mark Bowman. And, it's funny to me that there's, all these other programs now saying that USC is buying recruits and this, and, that's just an easy cope when other fan bases get upset. We've said all along, for a long time now, or in the 3-4 years I've been doing the show, but specifically the last kind of 365 days when NIL has become really prevalent. I've said it, Madman said it, Coach has said it, I'm sure Tim said it on his program before joining LAFB. We've written about it. All USC needed to do with NIL is get competent. That's all they had to do, was get competent and make offers that were competitive. And they would be one of the top recruiting programs in the country because of what USC is. I know outside fan bases hate to see it, but it's the facts. USC is a blue blood. It's West Coast. It's LA. It's history. It's tradition. There's so much to the program. The coaching staff obviously talks about it ad nauseum because it's true. for the past year or 2 years, USC was way behind in the NIL game. I think last year they got caught up in terms of funding, like the funds were there, but they didn't have a strategy or a figurehead to carry out that strategy, right? They had no GM, there was no real front office. Now USC has caught up and probably surpassed in the sense that they have an elite front office led by Chad Bowden. They have a former GM who's now director of player personnel underneath Chad Bowden. They had 2 rising personnel guys that were going to be GMs on their staff as well, plus the funding that House of Victory and Jen Cohen and Lincoln Riley included had done a phenomenal job just getting the funds. So all USC had to do was get competent in their NIL funding and strategy, and the rest would take care of itself with the USC brand, but also the coaching staff that Lincoln Riley has built. So they're not buying recruits. They're just able to do what other programs had been doing the previous 2 years that they weren't. And so on Mark Bowman specifically, and, I don't know if anyone knows the true number outside of whoever has been in the negotiation talks. I've seen a lot of big numbers floated around. Based on what I have heard and who I have talked to, is essentially USC matched what Texas, and maybe Georgia, but specifically I heard Texas, what Texas was offering. So they essentially matched it, and then Bowman chose USC because of all the other opportunities, the proximity to home, the tradition, what USC is building with the 26 class, obviously the coaching he'll get from Chad Savage, the relationship he's built with Chad Savage, who, tight ends and inside receiver coach, has spoken ad nauseum about his recruiting style and what is so important. So anyway, I don't want to get long-winded on it, but I think it's important. And USC fans, you don't care anyway, right? Like, cool, got the recruits. Like, who cares how it happens as long as it's within the rules? But I think it's important because that's what's always going to get thrown around when any program is having success is, they're just buying recruits. And it's like, well, no, they're playing the game the right way within the confines of how NIL is supposed to be utilized, and now USC just actually has the competency to do it that they didn't have in previous years. And now they can not only compete with the big boys in that standard, but guess what? They can now surpass because of who their coaching staff is, because of the brand, because of the campus, because of all the other things we always talk about. So they got Mark Bowman because they were able to actually make a competitive offer, and then they wowed him with everything else they were offering. So I just want it to be very clear from what I've heard and just my opinion anyway. This was not he's just chasing the bag and that's why he was going to Texas and then USC outbid them and won. No. From what I've heard, they merely made a competitive offer that matched that and then all the rest sold it. So huge win for Chad Savage, Chad Bowden, Lincoln Riley. This kid's special. I mean, he's supposed to only be a junior, going to be a junior, but he reclassified. So it just shows like his sky is even higher than what it is because of how young he is. He's only going to get better. So you get him on campus earlier now to develop and create that next great tight end in the Lincoln Riley system. Hey, what's up, guys? Decided to split up the videos, actually keep them a little shorter. So make sure to check back in just a couple hours for the 2027 quarterback intel that I will be dropping. See you guys there.